Hello everybody and welcome to Passing the Police Officer Selection Process. My name is Richard McMunn, and for the duration of this presentation I'm going to give you some crucial tips that are guaranteed to help you successfully pass the police officer selection process. Now there's a number of reasons why I have decided to do this presentation. I've been contacted by a few people recently who have noticed that a number of police forces are starting to recruit again, which is fantastic news because, as you know, there has been a drought with regards to police recruitment, particularly because of austerity measures over the last few years. So what people are asking me is, how do I prepare myself, especially in relation to the new core competencies that came into force a couple of years ago? And that's the main reason why I have created this presentation. Now, it's no secret that the vast majority of people who go through the entire selection process will fail at some point, whether that's on the application form, at the assessment interview, or even the final interview. And this presentation is going to give you foundations for success, especially in relation to the core competencies. I was looking today on one particular constabulary's website, and they stated that 1 out of 10 will pass the selection process. So that basically means that 90% of people will fail. Now, by no means that does not mean that those individuals are not capable of being police officers. It just means that they are unable to pass the selection process because they haven't demonstrated the key requirements for the role. So that's what we need to do with you guys. For you guys who are either going through the selection process now, and I know some of you are, or those who are wanting to apply, we need to get ourselves ready and make sure that we can demonstrate the key core competencies at every stage. Because if you do that, you will have a far greater chance of succeeding. And I will certainly be a happy person when more people contact me and they tell me that they have successfully passed. So the presentation, I know it's an evening, I'm not going to take up too much of your time, probably around about 20 minutes it's going to take, but please stay to the end because there's some golden tips throughout the presentation. So just to give you a quick background about myself, there's me. It's me talking to you. I'm coming from Tunbridge Wells at the moment in Kent. I worked in the Royal Navy for 4 years. I then left the Royal Navy and I worked in the fire service for 17 years. I then started up the website, as you know, howtobecome.com. I have extensive knowledge in recruitment. I've been heavily involved in creating competency-based assessments. I've also personally passed the police force selection process, so I know what you guys are going through, and I've sat on numerous interview panels and assessments assessing people like you. But most important, I have a passion for helping people to be successful, so I want you to become police officers and pass the selection process. So write these down, guys. The first thing that we need to think about when we're preparing for the police officer selection process is the core competencies. And what I want you to do is to think about building a house. If you're going to build a house, what is the first thing that you would lay down? And that is the foundations. Now, the core competencies are the foundations to your success. If you do not know these, and if you do not learn them and be able to demonstrate specific examples of where you have been through each and every one of these, then your chances of success will diminish rapidly. And this is one of the reasons why most people fail the police officer selection process. It's because they are unable to provide sufficient evidence, and please write that word down, sufficient evidence of where they meet every single one of these core competencies. And I'm going to teach you how to achieve this as I go through the presentation. So we know the new core competencies are public service, working with others, professionalism, openness to change, service delivery, and decision making. You will also be assessed, and again, write this down please, you will also be assessed in the manner in which you communicate. And I am not just talking about how you speak at the interview or at the assessment with the role play or interactive exercises, but also how you write down your responses on the application form, and also with regards to the report writing. So it's very important that we focus on these particular areas. I'll talk about the application form quickly in a little while and explain why the majority of people fail it. But we need to think carefully about these core competencies. Some people say to me, yeah, but they're really boring, Richard. And I just say, look, I don't care. If you want to be a police officer, you have to learn these and understand them. So public service. Now, as police officers, we have to act as role models. Write that down. Police officers are role models, and they have to be able to provide a high quality level of public service. Therefore, when you go to the assessment and when you are completing your application form responses, you need to demonstrate that you have the ability to provide and offer a high quality level of service to everybody in society. And I mean everybody. Society nowadays is diverse in nature, and therefore the police force needs to be diverse in nature if it is to be able to deliver the high quality of service that the public expects. Now, working with others is basically another word for teamwork, and it's your ability to work with other people in order to achieve tasks which will determine your success in this particular area. You have to have specific examples of where you have worked with other people to achieve a common task. Now, write this down, please. If you can provide examples of where you have worked with other people from a diverse team or a diverse community, then that is better. The more people we are comfortable working with, the better. Okay, so that is important to be able to demonstrate that. Now, obviously, police officers need to be professional, and they need to act with a high degree of integrity at all times, because that's what we expect from our police officers. Now, I'm going to talk about keywords and phrases in a moment, and these keywords and phrases are going to really help you to beat the competition. So I just mentioned about acting with a high degree of integrity. I would be saying that at the interview. I'd be repeating that phrase on the application form. Now, openness to change. The reason why this core competency has come in over the last couple of years is because within some public sector services and organisations, some people have been reluctant to change. Now, the government wants to be able to change the police force and public services. Okay, now regardless of what we think about that, we as individuals have to demonstrate to the police force that we are open to change. So they might say to you, can you give an example of where you have supported change within an organisation? And you have to provide a specific example. So write that word down, specific. We are looking for specific examples. Now, service delivery is exactly that. It's being able to deliver a service to the public. Now, we achieve that by not just working on our own in the police force as individuals, but we collaborate with other stakeholders and other organisations. So the police will work with the fire service, they'll work with the local authority, the local CCTV organisation, etc. Housing, social services. They'll work with everybody to be able to deliver a service. Remember this, the police force does not act in isolation. It works with other stakeholders. Now, decision making. This basically means that you as police officers have to make decisions. Now, that may sound obvious, and you might say, Richard, why are you telling me that? I know I have to make decisions. But you'll be surprised at how many people in a work environment cannot make a decision. Okay, now you're making a decision with regards to the fact that you not only want to join the police force, but you want to get yourself fully prepared for it. That is making a positive decision in your life. Now, the police want people who can take hold of situations and resolve them in a professional manner. So whilst these core competencies, like I say, some people say to me they're very boring, you have to read them. So make sure you read them, learn them, understand them, and be able to demonstrate them. So let's think about how we're going to demonstrate these core competencies. Let's take the core competency of public service. Now, you will see here, guys, that within the text I've highlighted a number of keywords and phrases, and I would like you to write these down. Now, this process will work for you. I call it a blueprint for success, and it will work for you. So it doesn't matter what stage of the selection process you are at, whether that's completing the application form, you are yet to apply, you're waiting to go to assessment, or you're going to a final interview. Go through this process. Now, I'm going to give a couple of these. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to give a couple of core competencies, and then I want you to work through them on your, when you finish this webinar, work through on your own and go through this process. So if we quickly go through public service. So I mentioned earlier on, it's actually having a belief in public service. And it says there, you have to demonstrate a real belief in public service, focusing on what matters to the public and will best serve their interests. You have to understand the expectations, the changing needs and concerns of different communities and strive to address them. You have got to, as a police officer, build confidence by talking with people in the local community and explore their viewpoints. So you're basically listening to their viewpoint and then breaking down barriers between them and the police. Because we all know, over the years, I mean, the police do a fantastic job. They really do a fantastic job. But there have been barriers built up in society, and we need to break those down as police officers. You also need to understand the impact and benefits of policing for different communities and identify the best way to deliver services to them. You need to work in partnership with other agencies to deliver the best possible overall service to the public. Now, this is the important bit, and this will help you to gain very high marks in every single area of the selection process. You learn each of the core competencies. You highlight keywords and phrases within each core competence, and then you repeat them during the application form. You say them at the interview, and you build your responses around these. Now, if you think about it, the police force receives hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications whenever they advertise police officer jobs. So the person who sat down marking your application form will be going through your response, and they will be looking for evidence of where you meet the core competencies. Now, if you provide evidence by way of repeating phrases, now not all of them, you have to do it genuinely, i.e. you have specific examples that you've been through where you've broken down barriers, then you will achieve success if you use these keywords and phrases. So the reason why I have coloured these in green is because these are the ones that I believe you should concentrate on in your responses, and also when you're creating your written report, also when you're doing your interactive exercises, and also when you're responding to the competency-based questions. So you should say, you know, I focused on what matters during this situation. You can say in your application form responses, I understood the expectations of the individuals, and therefore I changed my approach with regards to their concerns. And if you use those keywords and phrases, they will jump out at the person who is either marking you or assessing you. You can say in your responses, I explored their viewpoints, I listened to them, and I took steps to break down the barriers. So write down these keywords and phrases. So this is for public service, and I would encourage you to use these during your responses on the application form. I would encourage you to use them at assessment centre and also at interview. So you can say, I focused on what matters. I understood their needs and listened to their concerns. I took steps to build confidence. I worked with others to deliver the best service possible, and I broke down the barriers that were present. Now, like I say, if you concentrate on going through all of the core competencies and then identifying keywords and phrases from them and then using them in your strategy going through selection, your chances of success will absolutely skyrocket. I guarantee it. Now, the important thing is here, you can't make up situations. Okay, I'm going to come on to a couple of interview questions in a little while, but you have to have genuine situations that you have been in. Okay, so the first step is to think about the situations that you've been in, and then within your responses to the questions, build in keywords and phrases from each of the core competencies. And I guarantee you this really works. So let's take a look at another one, service delivery. Okay, so I mentioned earlier on, this is delivering a good service to the members of public and community. So as a police officer, you understand the organisation's objectives and priorities and how your own work fits into these. So when we become police officers, you know, we understand the objectives of the organisation. Now there's a tip there. Once you have successfully passed the assessment centre interview, if you are required to go to the final interview, you might get asked a question that states, can you tell us what the police force's main objectives are? Okay, and unless you know what they are, you're not going to be able to answer that question. So you need to understand them. So go on the police force's website, find out what their objectives and priorities are, and learn them and be able to not necessarily recite them word for word, but you should be able to understand them and tell the panel what they are. Okay, plans and organises tasks effectively, and you'll see that I have highlighted that in green. You take a structured and methodical approach to achieving outcomes. You are capable as a police officer to manage multiple tasks effectively by thinking things through in advance, and you're also able to prioritise and manage your time well. You have to focus on the outcomes that have to be achieved, and you work quickly and accurately, and you seek guidance when appropriate. Now, again, I have highlighted these because I want you to use these keywords whilst you are going through assessment. I understood the key objectives. You can say that. I was required to carry out a task, and you tell them what that task was. And I made sure I understood the key objectives. And what you are doing then is you're demonstrating to the assessor or the panel or the person who's marking your application form that you are able to meet the core competency of service delivery. I planned and prioritised the tasks in order of importance and then tell the interviewer what those tasks were. Okay, and by repeating those key words and phrases, I guarantee you will see the assessor writing down on his or her form the fact that you meet each of the core competencies. You can say, I was methodical in my approach to this task, and you can then explain what you did during that task. You can say, I focused on the task in hand, and I worked quickly and accurately. I sought guidance from my manager as I was unsure. Now, this is important. Write this down. The police force does not want people who just think they know absolutely everything. They would rather have people work for them who are aware that if they are unsure of something, they won't just go ahead and do it and hope for the best. They will ask their line manager for help and for feedback. So one of the questions might be, during the interview, can you provide evidence or an explanation or a situation where you responded to feedback from somebody else? So let's say that you were working in an organisation, you had an appraisal, and your manager stated to you that he or she wanted you to change what you were doing, and you took on board their feedback. That is really good, and that forms part of service delivery. So you can see the importance of the core competencies, but you can also see that when we're preparing for the selection process, guys, we're not effectively just stabbing in the dark. We are thinking about this process methodically. Learn the core competencies and also highlight each of the keywords and phrases that are important to that core competency, and then use them in each particular area of the assessment centre. And you can use them during the application form. You can use them at every stage of assessment. When you're doing your report writing, you can use them, and you can also use them especially during the interview. So one quick other one, professionalism. These are the keywords and phrases that I would use during the selection process. I acted at all times in a professional and ethical manner. I took responsibility for solving the problem. Now you can say that during the interactive exercises. Okay, I am now going to take responsibility for solving this problem. And by saying that, you're demonstrating to the assessor that you are able to meet the core competency of professionalism. I stood by my decision despite objections from others. We're talking about resilience there. Police officers need to be resilient. I remained calm at all times and in control of the situation. That is a brilliant phrase. I remain calm at all times and in control of the situation. So let's say you are in the interactive exercise and the role play actor is being confrontational. Okay, what we do not do at any time is respond in that manner. We always stay calm. And you can be firm with people but still be calm. You can say, I must stop you there, sir. Please do not use that kind of language. Now, I am being calm, but I am being assertive. So you can see the next one. I immediately challenge the inappropriate behaviour. Now, throughout the selection process, if at any time the role play actor that the interactive exercises uses inappropriate behaviour, either verbally or how they're coming along in their body language, you must stop it immediately, but stop it in a calm manner. Okay, don't let it go on. You must say, I will not accept that behaviour, sir or madam, please do not use it. But make sure you are calm at all times. Because if you are calm, you are effectively in control of the situation. The next one, in order to improve my performance, I sought feedback from my manager. Most people would see that as a sign of weakness. It isn't. It's a sign that you are being professional. So you are not taking risks. If you are unsure about something, then you can seek feedback. There is nothing wrong with asking for feedback or help. And you take on board that feedback and you improve your performance. And write this down. This is what is called continuous professional development, CPD. So at the interview, you can say to the panel, at the time I was aware that I needed to ask my manager for help. when she provided me with feedback, I took that on board, and I am always looking to continually improve. Okay, I'm always looking to develop. And another good keyword and phrase to use is that you reflected upon your performance. So you can say to the panel, once I finished the task, I reflected on my performance and I looked at ways that I could improve for next time. That is really good to say that. I took steps to diffuse the conflict. So if there's any kind of conflict at any time, in any situation that you're in, or during the assessment interactive exercises, make sure you use that phrase. I took control of the situation in order to achieve a positive outcome. Write this down as well, guys. Make sure that whatever you do, you're always looking for a positive outcome. And I'll teach you how to do that in a second, especially at the interview. Okay, so make sure you follow that approach for all of the core competencies prior to either completing your application form. If you've already completed your application form, make sure that you do it for the assessment centre and also for the interview. Very, very important. And I promise you, if you follow that approach, many of you will be contacting me to say, I followed it, I got in, thank you very much, because that's what we want to happen. So this next tip is crucial to your success. So during all stage of the police officer selection process, you will be assessed your communication skills. Now, I've already mentioned this, not just on the application form, but also report writing and also at interview. This is where a lot of people fall down. In all parts of the application, especially on the application form, write clearly and concisely. Now, your spelling, grammar and handwriting and punctuation are all assessed. Now, I know that a lot of you out there already know this, but you have to make sure you take your time to get it checked. Okay, there's nothing wrong even with going and get your form proofread by somebody else. Make sure there are no spelling mistakes or grammar errors. Now, your form could be rejected if your written work is difficult to understand, and also with regards to report writing. So like me, I use the computer all the time. Very rarely will I put pen to paper. But if I was going to the assessment centre in a month's time, I would start writing everything out and practicing my handwriting, because you're going to be under timed conditions. And trust me, if you haven't written or used pen and paper for a long time, your hand will get sore and you will be likely to make mistakes. Basically, you could be rejected if your written work is difficult to understand, spelling is poor, or if you have more than 10 spelling or grammatical errors. So we need to make sure that we are free for those. And again, if you make sure you're free from those, then you will have more chance of success. Now, prepare your responses to the interview questions before you attend the assessment centre. And you'll say to me, yeah, but I don't know what the interview questions are. Well, we can find out. It's able to know what they are before we attend. Now, again, please write this down. Because we're assessed against effective communication, this is the way that I strongly recommend you structure your responses to all of the interview questions. Now, I'm going to talk about the final interview in a little while, but this is concentrating on the assessment centre interview. Use the STAR method for constructing your responses. Now, take the interview questions, the perceived interview questions, write one down at the top of an A4 sheet of paper, and down the left-hand side in big letters write STAR, STAR. Now, when you are constructing your responses, first of all, use S. Tell the panel what the situation was, okay? And it has to be, write this down, a specific example that you have been in. Do not tell the panel what you would do if you were put in that situation. Make sure you tell them what you did do in a situation that you have already been in. So if they say to you, can you give us an example of when you have worked with other people to achieve a common goal? You will tell them a situation that you've already been in. Okay, so situation is the first thing. Once you've told them the situation, tell them what the task was that you had to do. Okay, so S for situation, T for task. A, when you come on to A, tell them what action you took and what action other people took. And then also at the end, what the result was following your action. And it's also good practice at the end to tell the interviewer how reflective you were. So you reflected on your performance and you decided that if that situation came up next time, then this is what you would do. So use the STAR process: situation, task, action, result. If you follow that, it will make sure that you provide a specific example during your response, and it will also make sure that your responses are structured. okay, because you're going to be assessed against how concise your responses are and also how structured they are. Remember, we need to be methodical in our responses. Let's take a look at a sample interview question which is being used at the moment. So write it down. Tell me about a time when you acted on your own initiative to solve a problem. So police officers, remember, they have to make decisions, they have to solve problems. And again, write this down, guys. How do you structure your response? Well, first of all, what was the problem and how did you approach the task? So with regards to what was the problem, we're going to tell the panel what the situation was. So what was the problem and how did you approach the task? Now, you approach the task in a methodical and concise manner. You put together an action plan based on the requirements of what you needed to do. Were there any rules or instructions that you had to follow? If there were, make sure you tell them what they are. Tell the panel what these are. Because as police officers, we have to follow rules, our training and our instructions. What did you do to complete the work as directed? So we're now telling them what action you took. So remember, situation, task, action. What did you do to complete the work as directed? You were methodical, you planned and organised, and you helped other people, you supported the team. And then what was the result? Always make sure, so write this down, always make sure that the result is positive following your actions. And how did you feel about completing the task in that way? So again, you can say at the end of the task, I reflected upon my performance and I decided that I could have improved by doing X, Y, and Z. So let's now take a look at a sample response to that question. Tell me about a time when you acted on your own initiative to solve a problem, because that's what we want to do. I am currently working as a sales assistant for a well-known retailer. More recently, I achieved a temporary promotion and was required to manage the shop one busy Saturday afternoon. At approximately 2 p.m, a customer entered the shop and approached the desk. He began complaining to a member of staff about a coat he had purchased from our company the week before. This lady was called Julie that he was talking to. As Julie listened to his complaint, he started to get quite irate and began to raise his voice. I could see Julie, my colleague, becoming upset. The gentleman then started to be verbally abusive to her, and at that point I calmly intervened. I introduced myself as the store manager and I informed the gentleman that I would be dealing with his complaint from here on. So what you're doing then is you're interacting, you're getting involved, you're taking a decision that as a police officer you're going to get involved to resolve this issue, and that's what police officers would do. I then went on to tell him that I would do all I could to resolve his complaint, but that I would not tolerate any form of aggressive, confrontational or abusive language. So what you're doing there is you are being professional. You are interacting and you're telling the person that you wouldn't tolerate in a calm and controlled manner that kind of that kind of behaviour, and that's important. You will gain marks for that. I also warned him that any further use of such communication would be reported to the police in line with company policy. This immediately had the effect of calming down the customer as he realised that he had already crossed the line with his comments to the other member of staff. He immediately apologised. Okay, so now your action. I then asked the customer to explain exactly what had happened, and I reassured him that I would resolve the issue. So you're taking personal responsibility for this situation. Whilst he explained his complaint, I maintained an open and relaxed body position in order to diffuse any potential conflict and utilised effective listening skills. So you can see that what we're doing with this response is we are covering all of the assessable core competencies. After listening carefully to his complaint, I then explained how I would resolve it for him. In line with company policy, the customer received a replacement coat in addition to a full refund, to which he was very happy with. I felt that throughout the situation, so we're being reflective here, I felt that throughout the situation I maintained a resilient and professional stance, yet still maintained to resolve the customer's complaint to their satisfaction. So you can see that what we have done is structure our response in a careful and professional manner. Okay? And I'll tell you where you can get a copy of this in a little while, but that is such a good response. It will score very high because we've used a STAR method, which is really important. So when you come on to the final interview, they are different kind of questions. Okay, here's a sample question for the final interview that is being used. What do you think the qualities of an effective police officer are? And I would say I believe the qualities include trust, determination, and please write these down and use them during your response. Trust, determination, integrity, reliability, being community focused. It's such a good phrase, guys. Being community focused. A great team worker, being able to work with other people. a good communicator, and that involves listening as well as talking. Police officers need to be caring, professional, resilient, confident, physically and mentally fit. They need to be organised, punctual. They have to have an ability to keep accurate notes and records, which is one of the reasons why you're assessed, because obviously you have to go into court and you're going to be relied upon to make sure that you keep accurate notes and records. And also being a positive role model. Use that during your response. You are a positive role model for the police force, for the organisation that you are working for. So those are the qualities of an effective police officer. So it's not just about catching criminals, it's about working in collaboration with other stakeholders to deliver a great service. Here's a good question. What would you do if a member of your team was not pulling their weight or doing their job effectively? Now, you could be forgiven for thinking, right, I need to go in there and tell them to pull their weight and I need to be assertive. Well, you do, but you need to explore. Remember, police officers are analytical. So here's the response. I would first of all ask them if there was anything wrong or if there was anything I could do to support them, because this individual might be having trouble at work. The member of the team might be having personal issues, and if this was the case, I would want to support them and help them through it. If it was simply a case of them being lazy, then I would take action to stop it. I would take them to one side and tactfully point out to them how important their role was within the team. I would inform them that without their full attention on the task in hand, we would not be able to achieve our goal as a police force, okay? So what we're doing with that is we're taking a methodical approach to the situation, which is what we have to do as police officers. We have to be analytical. So we're not just steaming in there and saying, I'm going to take action and tell them to pull their weight. We're looking at the situation, we're being analytical, and then we are taking steps to make sure, excuse me, to make sure that we cover all angles. Okay, now there's loads of stuff that I want to teach you, and I'd like you to come and spend a day with me and a former police officer where we're going to teach you everything there is to know about how to pass the police officer selection process. So at the website www.policecourse.co.uk, you can go there now and you can book yourself on our forthcoming one-day police officer training course. Now the courses are great value for money. They're only £87, but we cover every single part of the selection process. We'll go through the process that we've been through today, but in greater detail. We'll give you all the keywords and phrases that you need to use during every single stage of the process. You will also get to try out an interview in a safe environment. We'll cover the application form, and we will also teach you how you are going to be assessed, and you will get to try the latest tests, okay, that the police are using. So our one-day police officer course, which we're running very shortly, is run by a former police officer. It's going to teach you exactly how to pass every stage of the selection process. There are sample test questions and strategies on the day for drastically improving your scores. Now anybody can attend, okay? It doesn't matter what stage of the selection process you are at, whether you've got a date for your assessment or if you are yet to apply. We guarantee that we will greatly improve your chances of success. We will also give you recently used sample interview questions and answers, okay? So we make sure that you are fully prepared. We will also give you insider tips and advice from those who have successfully passed the selection process. Okay, we will also give you the scoring criteria. So if you go, please, now to the page, policecourse.co.uk, you'll see this website come up. Now I've provided a video there on the page which tells you more about the course, and then if you scroll down to the bottom, you can book yourself on one of our forthcoming dates. Now places are strictly limited, so please book your date now, okay, so that you make sure that you are fully ready for the course, okay, so you're fully prepared, and you've got your date booked in. Even if you can't go until later on in the year, make sure you book yourself on the course. So if you go to www.policecourse now, and then please get yourself booked on our day. The places are strictly limited, so please book your place this evening, www.policecourse.co.uk. Now we're going to be running a series of these webinars over the next few weeks, so look out for them, but please come and spend a day with us. The course is run at weekends, so if you are at work during the week. You can come and spend the day at the weekends, and usually Saturdays or Sundays. And like I say, they're only £87 to spend a whole day immersed with a former police officer learning exactly how to pass the selection process. So get yourself along there this evening and book your place. I hope you've enjoyed the webinar, and the only thing that's left for me to say is to wish you all the very best in your pursuit to becoming a police officer. If you follow those tips and strategies that I've showed you, and we've got loads more we want to share with you, then I guarantee your chances of success will literally skyrocket. We want you to be the small percentage of people that get through the selection process, and destiny is in your hands. So please book yourself on the course this evening, and we look forward to seeing you soon on the training course. Thank you very much for watching.